and make them go forward? How do we achieve success in a vision that are some of the boldest that we're seeing in North America, and make them go forward? I'm very pleased to be doing this very first one with the City of Brampton, whose unbelievable leadership in getting this and the other four as we get going rolling is highly commendable. And as I said, it's something that I would say this distinguishes Brampton and other municipalities across the Greater Toronto area and Hamilton area, and really the Golden Horseshoe from many other metros in urban metros in North America. This is an invite-only session. We're hosting it not just in conjunction with Brampton, but also with the University of Toronto School of Cities, who you're going to hear from, and our special partner, the City of Helsinki. So that's an exciting group of folks that are putting this together. Next slide. Everybody will not be surprised that during the plenary sessions, you'll be muted. You can. We don't have a lot of time for Q&A in the plenary, but we're going to have a lot more opportunity in the breakouts. But nonetheless, please use that or the chat functions. This webinar, you may have seen, is being recorded, so we will be something you can watch at a later date. Although it's invite only, many media have been invited to join. FYI, it will be available publicly ultimately, so this is not a closed door conversation, but it is invite only. So we wanted to get the right group of people. We're expecting, upwards of 200 professionals to be part of this morning's session. And then, of course, as part of the transparency, we do have a Twitter handle at ULI Toronto and the hashtag Ask Great Questions if you feel you'd like to do that. I'd suggest we probably not do a ton of social media, but certainly a little bit would be fine. Next slide. I want to acknowledge that as a Toronto region-based organization, we acknowledge the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. Quick note: there's a program that we did in June that we'll send you the link for that unpacks the meaning behind these words that we think are really important. And we as ULI are spending a lot of time, and we'll be continuing to spend a lot of time exploring this important intersection with our industry and our city building pursuits. Next slide. I want to acknowledge, as you can imagine, and our grateful thanks to our annual sponsors. We have found, as we've gone into this COVID era, which will have a lasting impact on the way we conduct our business as an NGO, a not-for-profit NGO, that we've become increasingly reliant on our annual sponsors. And it is sessions like this that, frankly, all of you have been invited at no charge. We cannot do these sorts of things without, and if you could keep going forward, we can't do these things without the support of these generous companies who are our lifeblood, frankly. So we just want to make super thanks, and many of them are on this call today. Okay, next slide. It is now my opportunity to turn over the podium to my chair, Emma West, who's a partner at Bousfields Inc. And she's going to get us rolling, and I'll be your MC throughout the morning. So I'll see you in a little while. Thank you. Emma.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Richard. As Richard mentioned, I'm a partner at Bousfields, and I'm the current chair of the ULI Toronto Management Committee. I want to thank you all for joining us here today for this unique program, which in so many ways reflects the global mission for the Urban Land Institute of which ULI Toronto is one of the more active chapters or district councils, as we refer to them. The mission for the Urban Land Institute is to provide leadership in responsible use of land and in creating and sustaining thriving communities worldwide. And by convening multidisciplinary professionals across the public and private sector, we're able to further that mission. We're not advocates of any specific land use vision or policy, but we do seek to convene conversations and elevate the dialogue to better achieve outcomes to maximize public and community good. And so that's very much what this is about this morning. This program really aligns with that. You will have seen in the agenda, and Richard has mentioned that we have quite a bit to cover today. And we want you to do a fair amount of work as well. We want to hear your thoughts and get some advice from you as our invited guests. The group here today represents people from public and private sector locally, but we also have international expertise, which gives us an opinion that doesn't have a vested interest in the matter, which is always an important perspective to hear. We have presentations this morning from our local partners, as Richard mentioned, the City of Brampton and the University of Toronto School of Cities, as well as the City of Helsinki. So you're going to hear those shortly. Then we have 2 breakout sessions that are woven into the morning. And again, these are designed to get your input, your critiques, your advice on the matters that we'll be discussing, and opportunities for you to reflect upon what you've heard from the presentations in advance of those breakout sessions. So it's going to be a busy morning. There's going to be a lot of work for us all to do as we go into those breakout sessions, and we're really excited to hear what you all have to say. So without further ado, I'd like to get us rolling. I'm going to invite Councillor Martin Medeiros, Wards 3 and 4 councillor in the City of Brampton. He's the chair of the Planning and Development Committee for Brampton. He will be followed by Trustee Kathy McDonald for Wards 3 and 4 Peel District School Board, who will then be followed by Richard Forward, the Commissioner of Planning, Building and Economic Development. They're going to extend their welcome to you as our event partner. Councillor Medeiros, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. As everyone knows, Brampton is one of the fastest growing cities in Ontario. Right now, we're at 3 times the rate of the provincial average. The area within the immediate vicinity of Shoppers World is very much part of the enormous growth. The Uptown area supports high density growth and design considerations for multiple modes of travel, including high quality work and cycling infrastructure. If the global pandemic has taught us anything, it has shown us that we must be ready to adapt to the new challenges and changing behaviors. Transforming Uptown into a transit-oriented community makes perfect sense. We are working hard at City Hall to build champions across all levels of government and sections to support smart growth and to advance collaboration and innovation partnerships. On top of Shoppers World redevelopment, the city has received development proposals for 6 sites with direct frontage of Huron, Ontario and Main Street Avenue. We are issuing twice as many building permits and carrying out double the number of inspections that we were just 4 years ago. As a city, we have had to face challenges with rapid growth and the challenge of COVID-19 to find innovative to carry on people's business and responsible and forward thinking. Feedback from the June 29, 2020 Council workshop on the Uptown TOC was very positive, and the events build on this excitement. Many of the designs you will see today incorporated an urban community hub and the surrounding public spaces at the heart of a transit-oriented community and Shoppers World master plan. These concepts represent a new way of thinking about city building, vibrant, modern, connected, welcoming, and healthy, and I hope you will find today's session interesting, informative, most of all, inspiring. On behalf of Council and the City of Brampton, thank you for joining us today.
Trustee McDonald, over to you. All right, maybe she wasn't able to connect with us, so I'm going to pass it over to Richard Forward.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard. I'm the other Richard on this program. I'm the Commissioner of Planning, Building, and Economic Development of the beautiful flower city, the City of Brampton, the 9th largest city in Canada, second fastest growing city with Canada's youngest population. Among the City of Brampton's greatest strengths is its commitment to community building, the core of planning, building, and economic development through collaboration with the private sector, the nonprofit sector, the public sector. Our urban design team is at the forefront of developing innovative tools for collaboration. Through these collaborations, we're able to understand the holistic and diverse needs of planning challenges at various scales, from individual development applications to wider framework plans that span over many kilometers. In attendance today, we have community organizers, leaders in the private sector, and staff from all three levels of government, including Infrastructure Canada, Links, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and Ministry of Affairs and Housing. We also have thought leadership from 3 nations, including the City of Helsinki, the ULI Building Healthy Places Initiative, and ULI Curtis Infrastructure Initiative from the States, and representatives from the Consulate of Netherlands and Sweden. It is our diversity and collaborative spirit that enables the innovation required to plan, build, and develop healthy communities and neighborhoods. We look forward to your contributions to unlocking the value of transit-oriented communities and leading the way to bring a greater global healthy and sustainable future. Thank you for your time, and we're grateful for your shared value of collaboration.
Thank you, Richard. And I'm not sure if were we able to get a trustee back online. Doesn't look like it. So we'll have to move on. Sorry, Trustee McDonald, if we do get you later in the program, we'll try to see if we can get you in. Next slide, and I will just keep things moving along. Next slide will bring up the sort of meat of the presentation from the local perspective. And I'm very excited, Yvonne Young, Ken Greenberg, and Maddie Simiateki from the University of Toronto School of Cities will now take the next 25 minutes to very rapidly push us through a significant amount of information that relates to the foundation of what this morning's conversation will be. And I will, if I don't upset somebody this morning, I'm not doing my job, but I'm going to keep people on time. So I will ask that the panelists stay within their allotted amount of time. Thank you. Over to you, Yvonne. Yvonne, if you may be on mute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yvonne Young, Manager of Urban Design for the City of Brampton, also part of the leadership team within ULI Toronto, and part of the SDRC Product Council within the broader ULI family. Very excited to be here today. This is part of the 4-part series that we're going to do within the Golden Horseshoe, particularly focusing on creative solution to unlock transit-oriented community. So I'd like to introduce to you 2 of our other partners, Ken Greenberg, also a member of ULI Toronto Advisory Board, member of the Order of Canada, recipient of University of Toronto honorary doctorates, and also serving as our strategic advisor for the City of Brampton. Maddie Simiateki is going to also join us for the presentation. He is the interim director for the University of Toronto School of Cities, focusing on financing, planning for infrastructure. And he also lead an initiative on creative mixed uses. So there's a lot to cover today. And what we want to show you is a work in progress that we're working on creating a model. And we will want to have a meaningful conversation with everyone to see how we can create creative solutions to unlock transit-oriented communities. So I'm going to do a quick share screen. So as I said, this is part of the 4-part series and focusing on delivering transit-oriented communities. And what we see, which is remarkable, is that this is also the beginning of transformation that could apply to 80% of the development countries globally. And because of this reason, we have brought in City of Helsinki from Finland, and we have also engaged our ULI headquarters, both Healthy Places Initiative and Curtis Infrastructure Initiative, and using this as part of the global best practices. So what we're going to do is today we're going to focus the conversation looking at a very tangible activity that is actually happening on the ground right now within Uptown Brampton. And we're focusing on thinking about what it takes to make it happen and going back to the fundamental, looking at how a comprehensive walkable neighborhood that focuses on families, healthy, active lifestyle can give an hour back to the residents and also becoming more productive and competitive. So that is the Helsinki model. So I'm going to flip it back to Alex. We have a couple of video that we'd like to share with everyone to give you a sense of what is on the ground today within Uptown Brampton, and also what potentially could be on the ground in the future in Uptown Brampton. Alex?
Hi, my name is Arkan.
My name is Chelsea.
My name is Matthew.
My name is John.
My name is Shamir.
My name is Timarol.
And my name is Jessica, and we are the Urban Vision Youth Council.
As a teen, I'm always on the go. That's why the terminal is so important to me. Despite its size, it's bare, a roof and a few metal benches. It needs to be a cushion for its 100,000 travelers. It would be complete with Wi-Fi, a waiting area, and better shelter. The business center isn't flawless either. It's big, so rentable bikes would help.
After studying for hours, a peaceful walk through a park can really lift my mood. But these moments get ruined by the obnoxious noise pollution from nearby streets. Incorporating a noise barrier between the residential and recreational areas will finally bring the peace and tranquility to all park goers.
Right now, the Uptown Hub is a hub for not an awful lot. As teens, we all just pass through, stopping for some bubble tea at most. But imagine this, keeping those bubble tea shops, but building a whole vibrant community around them.
A great city is one that is easily accessible and walkable. We want to take Uptown from the way it is, major roads and parking lots, and make it into a model pedestrian hub. Bordering these wide pedestrian walkways would be brilliant murals, community chalkboards, and bustling local businesses.
Creative hangout spaces are an integral part of the youth experience. Recreational cafes can host everything from arts nights to study sessions with my friends, while board game cafes are great hubs for teens to gather and enjoy a huge catalog of games over a delicious meal.
Speaking of group experiences, my friends and I always need a place to practice for our dance, train for the table tennis team, or even just relax after the exam. Comprehensive recreational hubs like community centers, equipped with dance studios, sports equipment, and gyms, are an absolute must in the teenage experience.
I love taking nature pictures in the parks and green spaces around. But with a revitalized and activated streetscape, I would drag my friends to the Uptown area just to take photos together. And of course, while we're there, we'll be sure to enjoy the vibrant culture, the cafes, the recreation centers, and the sound-protected green spaces. What's better, we'll get home in time because of the improved transit systems. That right there, that's the teenage experience that we want to have in 2040.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I live and work in Uptown, and I'm a community organizer. As a community organizer, I'm deeply involved in the neighborhood and with its residents. It's been great seeing Uptown grow over the last few years. In my spare time, I run a volunteer program that provides residents the opportunity to connect with others and become more involved in their community. I also host an online platform called My Uptown. Here are some of our active members.
My name's Nicole. Both myself and my husband recently moved into Uptown, where we both work full-time. We just purchased an apartment and chose to settle here with a plan to build our family. We were attracted to Uptown's convenient lifestyle and family-friendly amenities. During the day, I work at a collaborative co-working space, and my husband works at a nearby office building near the transit hub. After work, we usually eat out and try the different food options nearby. There are also always a lot of things happening in the Uptown TOC in the evening. Today, we're going to be taking a short walk before checking out the local dance show at the community hub.
Hi, my name is Mark. I was looking for a new place to live to move to with my daughter, and since I don't want to own a car, it meant that we had to find a place close to a school, parks and playgrounds, and this area provides all of that. For work too, it's very convenient. As a consultant, I can do most of my work from home, which is actually a norm since COVID hit us about 7 years ago. And if I have a client meeting, I book a room at the community hub. During the day, I often go for a run in the ravines, and weekends, we often travel to places, starting with the streetcar right at the intersection. We have relatives in Waterloo, which is easy to get to by train, and even the airport is more accessible than most places I lived in the GTA.
Hi, I'm Karen. Living in Uptown Brampton, I find it convenient to balance my life as a working mom. The Community Hub supports so many of our needs. As an artist, I am a lifelong learner, and the Community Hub offers many opportunities for me to broaden my expertise. Most days, after I drop my daughter off at school, I take a class or get some work done in the co-working space. It has community galleries and art walks that provide spaces for me to showcase my work. Walking home, we can reset from our busy day. We stop at the neighborhood park or walk along the ravine trail to take in the sights and sounds of nature.
Hi there, my name is Richard. I'm currently a student at Sheridan College, but I also intern with a local tech company at the Shoppers World Community Hub. As someone who lives an active lifestyle, I enjoy using the robust cycling network to get where I need to go. For instance, on my way to work, I actually bumped into one of my managers. I saw this as a great opportunity to bounce ideas off one another about local tech trends, and as we shared a cup of coffee in the plaza, we discussed how we can improve our business. During my lunch break, my coworkers and I decided to de-stress from staring at computers all day to play some pickup basketball in the urban park behind the hub. This definitely helps with keeping my mind clear and continue on my day at the hub.
Hi, my name is Nikita. I retired and moved to this neighborhood last year, and I love this place. I love the views from my apartment's balcony and catch a breath of fresh air. This also helps to focus on my new book. I enjoy the walks in the neighborhood on my way to the cooking class at the Urban Community Hub. As an ecologist, I love to volunteer at the community garden in the afternoon and at the same time connect with my friends. I enjoy my evening walks and meet with my sister-in-law for a coffee in the park.
Thank you, Alex. So we're going to walk you through some of the background information of what is happening on the ground right now within Uptown Brampton, and also how it relating to the overall growth potential within the Golden Horseshoe. So what is interesting about the Greater Golden Horseshoe is that it's the fastest growing city region in North America, and have tremendous growth that is catering towards new immigrants coming to the region. And within that, we see there's a big opportunity to rethink how we are positioning using rapid transit to deliver TOC to solve fundamentally two major issues. One is on affordability. Many of our citizens is spending a lot of after-tax income on cars, and also at the same time, there's an overall broader public health issue due to the physical inactivities and obesity because of the lack of active living. And our Peel Region Public Health has been at the forefront of this issue since 2014. So at that time has published a study with the other medical officer within the GTHA. And within Peel Region, what we find is that only 25% of the children in Peel is walking to school. And also over 60% of the residents are obese. And we see there's an opportunity to reshift how we are building the complete community to deliver a much more walkable solutions. There's also opportunity to rethink how we can position public health and potentially using the delivery of 20-minute neighborhood to solve two major issues. One is chronic diseases, focusing on unlocking the diabetes, and some other cardiovascular diseases. And secondly is also infectious diseases. And what is interesting about Brampton right now is that the city has a number of rapid transit investment that is already happening. And giving you an idea of where we're talking about, so what is highlighted on the map in here is the Hurontario main LRT corridor. We anticipate the LRT will be coming at the intersection of Steeles and Hurontario in 2024. And within Brampton, the demographic is that it's very diverse, and we know the city is growing very fast with anticipated 20,000 new population per year. And many of those, they are family forming immigrants that has bring in entrepreneur and business skill sets. And also fundamentally, they're looking for family-oriented location that doesn't need to worry about the need of driving to settle down. So the stars align when the provincial direction and also the global direction and some of the best practices showing us a way to get there. So now there's a focus on creating transit-oriented communities through creating a physical form of walkable 20-minute neighborhood, and also looking at through the implementation, for example, looking at Helsinki, how a coordinated master plan approach and also aligning the timing can use that to unlock these communities early on. What is interesting about this location is that there's also a strong alignment between Peel Council and City Council, particularly focusing on Vision Zero, Healthy Peel by Design, delivering the complete community surrounding the major transit station area. And within Brampton is 2 years ago, our City Council endorsed the Brampton 2040 vision. And through that is focusing on directing our growth towards the urban neighborhood. And particularly there's an opportunity of using design as a way to bring in consensus. And what is interesting happening right now is within this location at Hurontario and Steeles, we have 7 to 9 active development sites happening. And today on the call, we have representatives from all the local developers and also within the broader ULI family to have this conversation and thinking about how we can creatively unlock this neighborhood. So one of the strategy that we're positioning is using the thinking of creating a 20-minute complete neighborhood with an urban community hub as a catalyst to repositioning education to build talents, and also using that to really draw a new culture of how we're delivering healthy places early on. So sharing with you some of the demographics of what is in the ground at the moment. So within 20-minute walking distance from the intersection, we currently has around 25,000 population. And we know that half of those population, they are seniors, youth, or children. And moving forward, there's also the similar trend would continue, meaning in this neighborhood, as it builds out to approximately 100,000 population working and living within 20-minute walking distance, there could be a high portion of families living within that area too. And what is interesting in here is that we are trying to find a solution of how we can collectively between public and private investment to work together towards common critical path. So talking back to history a little bit, so this location has attracted development opportunities since the 1960s. So at that time, the Shoppers World was developed in different phases. And within the second phase, there's already thinking about doing different type of uses, but at the same time, it was done in a way that is quite car-oriented. And when the city started to provide the local bus transits to the area, there are future development that is coming along the way, but at the same time, it's delivered in a way that is somehow car-oriented. And now we're in the stage 3, looking at opportunity to deliver the physical environment in a much more transit-oriented way. Then what we mean by that is looking at a vertical mix, looking at walkability, and focusing on thinking about the scale of the people that will be within this circle. And another opportunity that we're looking at is how we can shift the development culture, looking at the existing assets within the circle there is existing 160 acres of open spaces and also a collective of public and private facilities and amenities, and how we can use those to integrate well together in a complete neighborhood. So our mission today is to, through the Future 2 breakout sessions, is thinking about how we can get into a 20-minute walkable transit-oriented communities. So sharing with you some of the data that recently released by Hansen report, looking at 41% of the jobs are going to be population related within Peel region. And we see those as opportunity to shift. Those are the ingredients of meaning that there will be a lot of people will be working, and those are the daytime population that is important to make the 20-minute neighborhood work. And within that, we understand there's going to be a diverse sector, including retail, education, information technology, and management sectors. Another element that is interesting is that, so what is shown on screen in here is from the Brampton 2040 vision of the idea of a complete street, the idea of a street for people, and also fundamentally shifting the focusing on creating more spaces for creating a safe neighborhood. And what is interesting on this image in here is that this intersection at the Huron, Ontario and Steeles is the intersection, according to Peel Region Public Health, this is the location with the highest walkability within the region, but it's also the location with the highest collision rate. So that means as we are shifting this location towards a transit-oriented communities, how we can arrive with from the current situation to this kind of vision would need some creative solutions. So some of the elements that we can leveraging on is looking at, we know that more than a quarter of the residents within Peel region will be living in the vertical neighborhood. And what we want to do is, as we are building the vertical neighborhood, we can also arrange the build form in a way that would provide for meaningful family-oriented environment. So what we mean by that is looking at creative solution of how to do mixed income housing, how we can utilize the ground floor environment for flexibility, and also fundamentally is to create a lot of opportunity for shared uses, potentially shared balcony as well. And we have talked about the 160 acres of natural assets within this 20-minute area. And what we find is interesting is that within the Greater Golden Horseshoe and other 905 municipality, there is also a lot of these natural assets that is waiting to be unlocked. And what we're hoping is that through this new 20-minute neighborhood model, we can find a new way of how we are dealing with the interfaces and treating those interfaces as the front to create a healthy community. So the opportunity aligns when there is now there's a strong focus of thinking about how we can make some of these provincial policy statements when it talks about co-location of facilities, how we can reposition infrastructure to focus on social infrastructure, and also how we can partner with the private development. So in this case, it's including RioCan through the development of shop as well, and also other local developers that is attending today to unlock this neighborhood. So sharing with you is a work in progress, an idea of how we start to incubate expanding the idea of co-location of an urban community hub to include not just recreation education, but also including arts and culture and technology and social. And through that is to create a shared spaces. So in the future, there could be opportunity for some of these facilities to be accessible on a 24-hour basis. It could be used for places for business, and also it could be arranged in a way that is a full and expandable model. So through a campus setting designed by Walk to and Cycle to, and it can be adaptable as the population is growing. So all of these would not happen if we don't have the partners working with us. So sharing with you is a work in progress examples of how we are working with different departments and agencies over the last 7 months and incubating a new design model to create a lot more adjacency and also share uses, and using that to think about how we can build upon the idea of really expandable urban hub. So now I'm going to flip the presentation to Maddie Sabatiki, the Interim Director of School of Cities, to talk about some of the implementation thinking of this model.
I'm just going to jump in with a time check. We've got 20 minutes for the next two speakers.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you to ULI and to Brampton for including myself and the School of Cities in this event. This is a really exciting moment in city building, as well as for the City of Brampton. We are on the cusp of a very different way of building cities, and a model that I think will be more sustainable, more resilient, more equitable, and more just. To zoom out just for a moment, in the current day, we're facing three interrelated challenges and crises. We're facing clearly a public health crisis with a global pandemic, but we're also facing a crisis of climate change and environmental degradation, and a third crisis of social exclusion, racism, and unaffordability of our cities. And I think what this moment calls for then is a new way of doing city building. In many ways, these three interrelated crises are urban crises. They have their roots in cities, but to be optimistic, we can also solve them. The solutions reside in cities and in the ways that we go forward and build our cities. And I think at the core of this is the model that Brampton is pioneering and putting forward, which is around collaborative city building. It's a model that at its foundation is not a winner-takes-all approach, but is how do you add and layer and bring people together, draw on their shared resources, shared skills, shared capacity to build cities and to build facilities and buildings and projects that are better than any one partner could realize on their own. Now, historically, these collaborative projects have really come about as a last resort. They've come about because none of the individual partners on their own could achieve their goals for a variety of reasons. Maybe it was because they didn't have full access to the site, or because the financing was challenging, or because they couldn't get development permits. And so they, as a last resort, they decided to work together. And we have many examples of collaborative creative projects done throughout the region, which I'll show you in a few moments. I think what's exciting about what Brampton is doing and other municipalities across the region is making this a first best option, bringing together different uses alongside transit to create truly vibrant transit-oriented communities that address these three interrelated crises, this notion, this emergency of public health alongside our challenges with climate change and meeting our climate change obligations and our social goals. And so what you're seeing then is in the Brampton model that's being proposed is this idea built around the 20-minute neighborhood where people can live, work, and play in close proximity. And at the core of this then is this idea of sharing spaces and drawing on the benefits of co-location, both from a programmatic perspective and from, as we'll see in a few minutes, from a financing perspective, to try to bring down costs by sharing some of the expenses across the different users, leveraging the tools that each of the tools and resources that each of the different players has to be able to deliver a project collaboratively and in common that none of them on their own could realize. Next slide, please, Yvonne. At the School of Cities, this approach to city building has been a key feature of our work. We've developed an initiative called the Creative Mixed Use Building Project, which is fundamentally about finding ways and learning how to build cities in partnership and in collaboration to realize the collaborative advantage. Our mandate and our role then is it has a few key features. One is to provide matchmaking, to really focus on how we bring people together. As I mentioned, historically, these creative projects that bring together, for example, a developer, condos, for example, with a school or a recreation center and a grocery store, or a homeless shelter and upscale condos, or an arts and culture facility blended with retail and commercial and offices. All of these different organizations have typically found themselves by accident or through their own interpersonal networks. And what we're working on as we try to scale up this model is the idea of how do you bring together these partners and enable them to start conversations about collaborative city building earlier on. One approach that we are working on is to work with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation on building a digital platform that will provide people with an opportunity to post their different sites and different plans and find folks who are looking for similar opportunities. We also work with partners directly to study individual projects and find ways that they can collaborate more easily and bring those partnerships together. So this notion of how we bring people together and learn from past experiences is key. We also have a repository of upwards of 60 case studies on our website that show some of the projects and really interesting, exciting, innovative collaborations that have happened in this region. And on this slide, you can just see a few of the projects that for those, when I present this work internationally, people will often scratch their head and ask, how did these projects ever come together in such creative ways? How did the development community and the nonprofit community and the public sector come together to collaborate and deliver these projects that are truly creative and driving towards a place-based approach to urbanism? And you can see just a few examples, seeing a university bringing together residence spaces with their educational spaces. You can see the TIFF Bell Lightbox, a phenomenal example of a major international arts and culture hub that was made possible in part by the condominiums that were built directly above it, which was made possible in part by the City of Toronto providing a density allowance to finance part of the arts and culture hub. Also, the George Street revitalization is a really exciting and important example of how social services and community services like long-term care, which we know we're having a crisis of long-term care in the midst of this global pandemic, and finding ways to finance and fund and deliver long-term care facilities and integrate them into a community so that they are not standalone facilities that are separate, but are part of our communities, that they have separate entrances and can be separated so that there's clearly safety, but also that the members of those communities can feel like they are part of the surrounding neighborhood and become part of the fabric of those communities. And we see this with arts and culture facilities. We see this with, in many cases, religious institutions engaging in these types of creative mixed-use buildings, recreation, schools, the school boards, the libraries. There are many examples across this region of how we achieve collaborative city building. Next slide, Yvonne. So importantly, this is not just a form of charity. This is also a business decision that building cities through the collaborative advantage and through collaboration allow the different partners to access resources that on their own they might not be able to reach. And so what we see is a whole host of financing and funding tools and techniques that become available when public sector partners work with developers, and the developers tap into the service provision opportunities and resources that nonprofits can also bring to the table. So this ranges on a spectrum from using from more public engagement and a stronger role for the public sector to a larger role for the private sector in the financing of these projects. But essentially what it permits and enables is at one end of the spectrum for governments to use their own debt financing to then pay upfront for infrastructure that can be paid back through revenues generated from specific projects. So this is more of a tax increment financing type of model. There are also approaches where the private sector can be given incentives and density bonuses, as well as expedited permitting in order to, or cash in lieu of paying development charges if they fund certain public services. And this can then, again, deliver this collaborative advantage where by working together, you can see public community facilities that then enhance the quality of a neighborhood, make the residential units or the office space more valuable for the developer. And we've seen this in a number of cases where developers have really benefited and been able to generate more revenue when they partner with communities and with nonprofits to have vibrant spaces. And our research shows that the value of these buildings, these creative collaborative mixed-use buildings drive a stronger sense of neighborhood and then are able to generate value for all of the different partners, whether it's financial value, community cohesion value, and spaces to provide critical public services that our communities desperately need, and in a city that's becoming increasingly unaffordable, often have a hard time finding a home for. So what you're seeing then is this notion of collaboration is a way of bringing together stakeholders from different sectors. And what we've seen in this region is that there are a growing number of developers, a growing number of municipalities, and a growing number of nonprofit organizations that understand the value of collaboration and are increasingly moving in this direction so that their projects have this rich mixing and integration. And all I would say is, well, is that transit really helps drive this, the sites where creative mixed-use buildings can thrive. These buildings are at their best when they're in walkable mixed-use areas so that they are tightly integrated into communities.
That's amazing, Maddie. Appreciate that. Ken, I apologize to be the meanie, but we're just running a little behind, so if I could ask you to compress to about 10 minutes, if that's okay.
I will do my best. Thanks, Maddie, Richard. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a design and planning methodology to actually deliver on this vision. And it starts really from two critical observations. One, that for a city to work for all, it has to be made by all, this inspiring quote from Jane Jacobs. And secondly, this is a problem of great complexity. And we're utilizing design thinking in a way that the city can actually provide leadership to a large range of stakeholders. Next. So we're looking for an integrated method, and it has to be holistic. It has to involve some ways of solving problems that we haven't employed up till now. It has to address the questions of what each of the contributing sectors needs from the other to make this work. What does the public sector need or can expect from the private sector? What does the private sector need to fully contribute? What does the community need? And finally, what does the nonprofit sector, which will be a key component, need? Next. This is a list of all of you who are participating in this workshop, and it really gives you a sense of the extraordinary array of actors. Not some of you are observers, but most of the people here representing several levels of government, representing the private sector in the form of the developers who are active in this area, representing agencies, municipal, regional, and other nonprofits who all need to come together to do the kinds of things that Maddie was describing. Next. So in order to make this work, we're going to look at three interlocking scales, both in time and space. In time, going from generational change to decade change to things that are much more imminent when we get down to individual building projects. Looking at a district-wide framework, which sets the stage and provides the glue. And then as we come down from 50,000 feet, we will eventually get right down to street level, but in between a neighborhood precinct. And at that point, the concepts get more refined and a different set of tools come into play. And then finally, a much more detailed and tangible set of considerations come into play when we actually get into design of individual projects to be built next. So the tool set changes as we come down in scale, the framework changes, the time frame changes. And so I'm going to take you through in sequence. We're going to do this zoom as we drop down from hovering over the site at a high level to getting right down on a street corner. Next. This is the same timeline you've seen, the 6-year timeline from 2018, when Brampton adopted its 2040 vision, which was really a landmark decision for this municipality to the arrival of LRT on the site at the other end of the timeline in July of 2024, which is the right now the ambition, the target, which seems to be able to be realized. So there's an enormous amount of activity that's happening at all three scales in order to make this happen. And next, we're going to take you through this. The two really significant underlying drivers that come into play in shaping the district framework, the neighborhood precinct plans, and then individual projects, as you will see, are obviously the transit, the LRT coming up here, Ontario, right from Port Credit and eventually to downtown Brampton, touching on 3 GO stations, and what has been tremendously underplayed, which are the natural systems. And you must have noticed that when the Youth Council presented their first video with no coaching from anybody, what they really gravitated to in terms of the experience was being in the valleys, being in the natural systems. And we want to make that a fundamental part of life in these emerging neighborhoods. Next. So here we're looking at roughly 9 square kilometers within which we have a great deal of active development activity. The Uptown core, which we'll talk about in more detail around Shoppers World, Sheridan College, which has its own new master plan, the CAA lands, and then 2 areas on deck, Uptown East and what we're calling Uptown Gateway South on here, Ontario. Next. So these are the components at this district framework scale. The 3 areas highlighted in with the yellow footprints are the actively planned areas, Sheridan College, the CAA lands, and now we're going to zero in on the Uptown core neighborhood precinct. The 2 others with the white background in deck. These are 1.6 kilometer circles representing roughly a 20-meter radius from the heart of these neighborhoods. Next. So this is where that idea of the greenways, the natural systems, the 2 creeks, South Fletcher's Creek and this the Tobacco Creek passing through the communities are incredibly important. And what we'll be looking to achieve are these creek-to-creek connections that weave the access to nature right through the individual neighborhoods. Next. And then finally, extremely important is the transit, the arrival of the LRT, bus rapid transit. This is a complete game changer. And active transportation, next, which you see here in the blue lacing of a bicycle network that Brampton has been working on, which will weave its way right through these individual neighborhoods. So cycling becomes a really viable way of getting around, both for commuting and for recreation. The image which you've seen before on the lower left of that corner of a street that Brampton had identified, major arterials being transformed by transit, is very important. And on the lower right, putting a social lens on that, the actual time that different members of our community take to cross an intersection. Not everybody is a highly active 25-year-old. We have a whole lot of people who have to be able to make their way across these major streets in a safe and convenient way. And so these 2 arteries, Steeles and here Ontario turning into Main Street when it crosses Steeles, as these neighborhoods change and as this district changes, they will have to change as well to accommodate an entirely different kind of life than has existed so far. Next. Now we're going to zero in on the Uptown core, Shoppers World precinct. Next. And so here, what you see is an emerging plan. We've tilted the plane slightly so you can see it in 3 dimensions, and you can see in more detail a highly mixed amount of development, both people living and working on the former Shoppers World mall site, plus outlined in black, all of the other development applications that are coming forward. What's extraordinary is that all this is happening concurrently. in real time, this process of transformation. Next. So now this green layer that we talked about, the urban greenways and the public realm, gets refined still further and makes its way into the fabric of the neighborhood, making those connections to the creek, but also to the nearby single family neighborhoods, the schools and the parks, so that it becomes a cohesive whole. And in the lower left, you see the idea that each individual development that is on the natural systems, rather than being backplotted or turning a back to these natural systems, finds a way of actually integrating and leveraging the benefits of these natural systems as we go forward. Next. And so here, once more, the transportation and active transportation network, you can see the finer grain as the cycling routes are identified, and the key gateway at Steele's Hurontario Main Street, where the LRT will be arriving in 2024, and what a prominent role that will play in wiring these new neighborhoods. Next. Very significant is what happens at street level. That's where people really experience the city. And so we've indicated in the color that you see on the edges, the fact that we'll be looking to buildings, and this is consistent with what our development partners are thinking about, to provide not necessarily only retail, but public facing uses, extroverted buildings that address the public realm at street level. Next. At the heart of this is the community hub that Yvonne and Maddie were describing, this campus. And so we're going to do a zoom again and look at this beating heart of this new emerging neighborhood. Next. So this really integrates an existing Kenneth Park, which you see, and then a lively set of uses surrounding that campus, and really being at the heart of the neighborhood. And I'll take us through this quite quickly, Richard. Next. This is a kind of imaginary X-ray through the ground floor, and it shows an intention. These buildings have not all been designed yet, but an intention to extend that life and activity both indoors and outdoors, and have dispersed throughout this walkable neighborhood a whole set of uses available to the public. Next. And one more zoom, this link which we want to highlight between the multimodal transit hub, where the LRT is arriving, and the community hub campus. This is a diagonal that RioCan had identified in their plans, and we think it is extremely important. And the way it is designed, constructed, maintained, and operated will really be the key to success in this neighborhood. Next. This has to work at all hours. Life doesn't stop at 5 p.m. This is going to be a 24/7 community. It has people living and working. It has people sleeping here as well as working here during the day. Next. And we're in Canada. This has to work for all year round. And this is a lively discussion now in the moment of COVID-19 as we try and take public life outdoors. And we're looking at opportunities to make the outdoors work in the shoulder seasons and in the winter as well. Next. Now, finally, we get down to what will ultimately be the 100% corner in this area at Hurontario Steele's Main Street, where redevelopment is going to occur on all four corners of this intersection. And so next. A really serious challenge is how do we humanize what you see on the right, which is the current condition, and as buildings arrive, as we reshape the public realm, how do we change this? And in the upper corner, what you see is a diagram that RioCan had actually produced about the intention of bringing their diagonal right to this corner. Next. So my final slide is just some of the key challenges that we have identified. And this will lead you into asking our panelists to respond to this, but also in the breakout sessions. How do we get multiple actors to work together to orchestrate this change? How do we deal with some of the timing issues that Maddie identified in terms of capital and operating expenditures? How do we define the roles of the various actors, overcoming silos and thinking outside of contract lines? And ultimately, there will be up to 100,000 people living and working within 20 minutes of this 100% corner that I've just identified. So how do we think ahead to really transform this to realize its full potential? Richard, I'm going to turn it back to you at this point.
Thanks very much, Ken. And I think that last slide, I might even ask my team to bring it back up again after the next panel ahead of the breakout sessions, because that's two of the things we're going to be asking you in these breakout sessions, starting right after this next panel, is for you in these groups of 10 groups of relatively small numbers, 15, 20 people, to perhaps expand on what some of those challenges you see are, having heard the presentation and the upcoming panel. And then later, we're going to ask you to flip it around and help us with some of the things that you think might represent solutions. And then we'll roll all that up toward the end of this morning. So that's a perfect way to segue into the next slide. I'm not, and I haven't, as you've noticed, just because we've got a lot of time, and I apologize to all our speakers, I'm going to be doing reading out bios, but if you could move to the next slide, you will have some information about our next three speakers, who we've asked to provide a professional perspective on what you've just seen as a way of getting us into the breakout sessions conversation. So now we're really opening it up. At this point, we're kicking the tires, we're pushing and prodding, we're offering some critique, etc. So please start to get your minds into that space, because that's coming up. So again, with apologies to our international speakers here, 2 international speakers and 1 domestic, I will just quickly read out your name and who you are, and then we'll leave the screen up for people to read a little more detail. But Andre Brumfield is the Cities and Urban Design Leader and Design Director Principal at Gensler, based in their Chicago office. Daniel Hofschild is Principal at Arup here in the City of Toronto. And Kate Collignon is a partner at HR&A, a famous firm based in New York City. Again, more information is there. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Andre, you're up first, followed by Daniel. We, as you know, have about 20 minutes for you all, and we're a little bit behind. So if I could ask that you keep your comments fairly compressed, with apologies for doing that to you. All right, over to you, Andre.
Well, thank you, and good morning. First, I just want to thank the City of Brampton and ULI Toronto for inviting me to participate in this panel with 2 esteemed colleagues and professionals. And I also just want to applaud you for taking this ambitious approach in how you actually accept the challenge of managing growth and how you actually see it as an opportunity. But kind of before we kind of open it up to a larger discussion amongst the 3 of us, I just have to say, from a personal standpoint, I really appreciate what the city has done in terms of how they've identified the personas of not only the existing conditions for the people of Brampton, but also what the future Brampton could look like. And I have to say this and get this off my chest. As an African American, as a Black American, what I saw not only made it clear to me that you're taking equity and inclusion very seriously, but more importantly than anything, it already makes me feel welcome as a visitor coming to your city. And I just wanted to at least say that, because that human part of this, of what you're actually talking about in terms of 20-minute neighborhood and what you're thinking about in terms of how the city can evolve, I just really have to applaud you and just make that comment of what it feels to me personally based on what I've seen so far. So again, I know we have a short period of time, but I do kind of want to have a larger discussion here with my other panelists, but thank you for that.
Sorry, why don't I turn Daniel to you? And I know you've got some slides that you're going to show, and if you could go through them fairly quickly, we'll hopefully have a chance for a little bit of conversation as well.
Unmute. There we go. And do we have the slides coming up? Oh, there we go. Well, first off, while they're loading, I would just say I was really heartened to hear the comments from Councillor Medeiros. Next slide, please. I think you really spoke to this idea of change and COVID showing that we can really make significant change if we put our minds to it. And to me, equally important is even when COVID retreats, we have other stressors in terms of health and climate. So I think we need to carry the momentum forward. So next slide, please. We were asked to comment. What struck me about what's critically important is vision, and I'm really, the development community and the city and region have come together to kind of push forward on a vision, and vision leads everything. So what I wanted to focus on was more about how you make deliberate choices and this idea of incremental but transformational change, and just drawing just very quickly on our experience working on Queen's Quay in Toronto. Clearly Waterfront Toronto, the city, has a very clear vision for that area, but I think what made it successful is kind of two critical things. One, to Andre's point, really focusing on the people who's using it and conscious, deliberate design to, and design choices that reflect how people navigate, use, and are comfortable in the space. And I think that was one element. And the second one was really about making deliberate and making tough choices. And I think that's the hardest part for us is there are a lot of competing needs and uses in the right-of-way and adjacent development. And the core thing is being able to and willing to make those trade-offs. And I think that's been the experience on the waterfront. So on the right, you kind of show the transformation, but if we go to the next slide, it happens over time. So this is further east on Queen Street. And, I commuted along this during my Metrolink stays by bike every day. It was a pretty windswept, uninviting place. And, 10 years on, it's transforming. It's not all the way there, but I did want to point out two key things. One is the buildings are coming in and they're really framing the space and making it a more friendly environment. And this is an interim condition in the street, but we've tightened up the lanes a bit. We've made some improvements to the bikeway. Not done yet, but certainly a progression and making it more comfortable than it was. Next slide. So I think, Ken highlighted one of my key concerns is this Huron-Ontario and steels, and I picked up on the humanizing arterials. And I think one thing that's really important to me is when we talk about humanizing arterials, it's really about both the street and the built environment coming together. And they need to work together. And so for Main Street and Steeles in particular, I think the corner where the bus terminal is really one of the critical pieces. And when you look at the bottom left in the photo there, you have the bus terminal and you have that access. I think the access is a great idea. I'm slightly worried about that being kind of a windswept expanse if we don't bring the buildings forward and really frame that intersection. And so I think two things need to be considered is, the transit terminal is going to be there for a while, but over the long term, it can evolve. How do we either incorporate it in a building or adjust and move how it operates to really bring the framing of the buildings forward? And secondly, thinking about what needs to happen to that street to complement the built environment and looking at strategic interventions to make the street work for everyone. And it's complicated because there's a lot going on there. It's a key freight corridor, key regional road. Next slide. But I think a key thing is the road, you can still have a fairly large road in capacity. And this is an example from University Avenue in Toronto. It's 4 lanes, 3 plus traffic. And I think what makes it work is partly the landscaping, but mostly the framing of the built environment. So the roads and the buildings need to work together. Next slide. And I love Ken's, the last slide from Brampton. Ken is I think it's really about the technical, it's not about the technical issues, it's about us and how we work together. And I'm happy to talk more about how we reconcile those visions with standards and getting alignment. And it's really, to me, about the decision process. And last slide. And just a shout out to Board of Trade and ULI. They were released this report last week from a roundtable. Equity, the development community came together and said equity is critical in how we design our spaces. And secondly, just this idea of being courageous and thinking differently about how we use our right-of-way. So thank you, and excited to be a part of this.
Great, thank you. And we'll now go to our last speaker on this panel, Kate. and we'll hopefully have a time for one quick round of questions with all of you.
Terrific. Thanks, Richard. And I wanted to echo Andre's thanks to ULI Toronto and the City of Brampton for inviting me to join you here today. You know, what I find fascinating about this is that usually a vision with the scale of transformation that we're talking about here is something that you would only really see on acres and acres of publicly owned land. And as you know, Yvonne and Maddie and Ken identified, we're really talking about a number of different stakeholders, certainly on the public side, but on the private side also, who need to come together to achieve this, which is potentially one of the biggest challenges. But if you recognize that, you know, with the transit coming in, certainly given the value that that's generating, you could see a number of individual private buildings going up. If you have a way to articulate and recognize the value that a collaborative effort creates on the development side in terms of value generation within the market, and on the public side in terms of achieving social benefits, there are a handful of specific steps toward that that can overcome any concerns about you know, how to bring these different stakeholders together. I'd say first is, as was articulated, moving ahead early with the investment in social infrastructure, which again can achieve the social benefits that were talked about, but also from a market standpoint sends a message to potential residents about the kind of place and experience that Uptown Brampton is going to offer, the kind of community it will provide for the range of different household types, ages, et cetera, that you're looking to attract here, which can deepen and hasten market absorption overall. Once it's created, it'll also generate a community-oriented feature that increases value for subsequent development as well. And can really distinguish Brampton from other development opportunities around across the country and around the world. In order to do that, of course, you do need to figure out how you're going to capture that longer term value that's generated in order to pay for that upfront infrastructure, whether it's through tax increment financing or the range of different other kinds of tools that Maddie described. But in order to do that, you need to early on articulate the benefits to the range of different stakeholders who need to come together to make this happen. And that's on the real estate side through the additional market value of collaboration and upfront investment, as well as the reduced costs, access to public financing, and potentially streamlined regulatory approvals. There are the economic benefits in terms of really enhancing Brampton's brand as a place to do business, as a place to live, given this forward-looking vision with associated job creation. The fiscal benefits in terms of property, income, business, and sales taxes. And then fundamentally, the social impacts and benefits that the public sector stakeholders and the communities nearby stand to gain from this in terms of health, in terms of access to open space, in terms of housing affordability. And I think that communication of potential benefits is really one of the values of this planning process and today's conversation. And it gives us the ability to align around vision, make sure that expectations are clear, which can reduce risk ultimately for individual developers and really build value for everybody involved.
Super, thank you very much, Kate, and all of you. The next thing we're about to move into with everybody in the breakout sessions is to, as I mentioned, round one is going to be to discuss the challenges that you as our professional guests see, whether you're local and vested interest in this from either the public or private sector side of the equation, or you're external entirely to Brampton and you're seeing this perhaps a little more objectively. I'd like to ask our panel as a quick go around, just to get us rolling with that in mind. What do you see as maybe a key, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, so one of you jump in first, but your key challenge that you would imagine would need to be overcome? We'll get later on in the program into how we overcome some of those challenges, and they might be specific to this application because you're fairly familiar with it, maybe more so than some of our guests, or it might even be more of a generic type of challenge that you see with this kind of, and acknowledging that this is fairly unique, but this kind of vision. I don't know who wants to jump in first, but let's go quickly around 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go into our breakouts.
Well, I'll actually jump in first if that's okay.
Sure, thanks, Andre.
Well, I think the key challenge that you're probably going to face is the success of what you're creating out of your vision, and how do you actually manage affordability, and how do you actually truly manage equitable development in a different way that actually allows for people of broad incomes to actually live, and also more importantly stay in your future city of Brampton, and how do you actually retain the people that's already there. So I think, if we look at how other cities, at least in the United States, have been struggling, quite frankly, to manage growth and manage affordability. Places like Seattle, Houston, Denver, just to name a few, for different reasons, they've been kind of struggling with a new population that's been coming in, and how do they actually keep a new product in terms of residential affordable. So the idea of, and we were talking about this the other day, of that missing middle, something that's a higher density of a single family home, but that's a lower density of a 5 or 6 story building with ground floor retail commercial use, to provide more or broader range of housing types, so people of all ages and family sizes can actually come to Brampton, and more importantly stay. I think that's going to be one of your interesting challenges, especially, I think Kate was talking about this in terms of how you actually partner with your other developers in the private sector.
Super, great. Thank you. Maybe Daniel, then Kate.
Sure. Yeah, I think the thing I think I highlighted is the importance of vision, but then also alignment around, particularly within the city, but I think it's across stakeholders in general. But how do you ensure that the vision, all the individual actions of individual players add up to a vision? And I think that's often where we get the disconnect, because you have the different focus areas of different parties. So I think creating a framework agreement on principles and just alignment across the organization, so you're all pulling in the same direction, to me is critical in realizing the vision.
I think that's exactly right. Is given the number of public and private stakeholders here, how do you get everybody aligned in terms of what that vision is, but also what the phasing and implementation strategy should look like, which is going to be essential to figure out how the financing works for any upfront infrastructure investment. That's a key piece of what's been described today.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. That was great. That really got us moving into, I think, the next part of this morning, which is to begin to really get out of our guests your thoughts. And before we do, I want to thank. I think maybe go forward just a couple of slides here. We've recruited, or I should say, our friends from Brampton have recruited their colleagues in the city to provide 2 roles. One is note takers and the other is facilitators. So as you move into your group, you will see you will meet your facilitator and note takers. The facilitators are going to ask the big questions that and we'll come back to that in a second, but basically around the whole idea of the challenges that you see. We've heard a few, and I hope that maybe you agree with some of those challenges and reflect those back, because it would be great to capture them in your notes as well. And then we will do another round a little bit later after our Helsinki presentation around what might be some of the great solutions we could be looking at as well. And then we're going to roll all that up at the end of the program. So right now we're asking you to focus on the challenges. What are they? Let's get them out there. Some of them might be big, some of them might be small. They're all going to be captured by the note takers. So whether they get part of the sort of top 3 roll-ups from each group, or they're part of the other 8 or 9 that you might come up with, they're all going to be captured. So it's really quite important. Our time check is not bad, and thank you for the last panel for getting us sort of a little bit back on track. And the reason we were behind was probably the front end, not the first panel. So I just want to take the blame there, take the bullet for that. But I want to take this right up to 11 o'clock. We had originally planned about a 5-minute break. With your indulgence, I'm going to wipe that out so we get a little bit more caught up with time and give you a full 35 minutes for these sessions. And at this point, this is when I kind of cross my fingers, but I think we're going to find that our facilitation into these sessions is quite smooth. Especially thank you for those of you who put the number of your group in front of your name. That helps us get organized. You'll be able to mute and unmute yourself throughout the sessions. If you're calling in by phone, you do that by going *6 to mute and *6 to unmute. And the computer is Alt-A, but I think you can also do it on your screen. We're keeping your video on during this session is really important. People seeing your face in these smaller groups really helps make them for a better conversation. If you need any help, there's an ask for help function that you can use. You'll be asked to click when it says breakout room, so you'll see that prompt in a second. If there's any problems, you can come back out, and we can sort that out in the main screen. Again, hashtag Ask Great Questions is always there for you if you're social media inclined. So with that, unless my colleagues at ULI have any other comments that I've missed, we're about to do the magic here of putting you into your breakout sessions. See you then.
You should receive the prompt on your computer asking you to join a specific room. If not, you can press the breakout room button at the bottom of your screen. If you're still in the main room, you will have to press, there should be a pop-up on your screen asking you to join a meeting room. If not, you can press the breakout rooms button at the bottom of your screen. If you're having trouble joining a room, let us know by unmuting yourself so we can get you into the rooms as soon as possible.
Technology is working. If there's anybody who has any issues, you'll let us know, and we'll try to resolve them. But thank you for that last session. I enjoyed the one I was in very much. What I would ask of the facilitators who after the next breakout session will be reporting out the top challenges that you feel you've pulled out. That may not be all of them, but just if you could take the top 2 or 3. If you need a couple more, that's fine too. We're going to put them on Post-it notes, so just sort of keep them super condensed for that purposes. We'll take the deeper, longer notes as well at the end of this morning. But we're now, and then of course the next time we get together in breakouts, we'll be talking about some of the solutions. And I know that probably some of you have already gotten into some of that solution discussion, so you might hold those points for that part as well. I'm super excited to now shift this next final plenary presentation to some international inspiration from the City of Helsinki. Once again, I'm doing no service to our esteemed guest speakers by not reading out their bios. but I will just quickly introduce, first of all, we have the Deputy Mayor of Helsinki, and I hope I pronounce some of these Finnish names right, Anna Sinimäki, no doubt, Annie Sinimäki, who's the Deputy Mayor for Urban Environment of the City of Helsinki, Jani Moles, who's the Head of International Affairs for the City of Helsinki. Many of us met Jani in person last September, almost exactly a year ago, in Brampton. And then Thomas Hakala, who's the Head of Detailed Planning for the City of Helsinki. The Deputy Mayor is coming to us by video. Video is not the best on Zoom, but so a little bit of a delay, but I think this, it's about a 2-minute video. So we look forward to hearing from the Deputy Mayor, and then we'll ask our next 2 guests to speak in the order that you see them on the screen. To my colleagues, run the video, please.
Hello everyone, greetings from Helsinki. As Helsinki, we are really happy and excited to participate in the discussion of the growth of the Greater Toronto area. As you probably might know, Helsinki is a city where we also face the challenges and also the excitement of growth. We have been growing rapidly for more than 10 years. Our 2 main strategic goals how to build the city is expand the urban core, the city center area, and also we aim to densify the former urban centers to be more dense, more urban, more full of life. At the moment, we're here in Kalasatama, of which you will hear more in detail. This is a former port area, a typical place in Helsinki to build the city further. This will be a residential area of more than 20,000 people, but also a significant workplace for thousands and thousands of people. Where we are investing, what does the growth require from us? I would say that 2 kinds of investment, especially public transport. Everything that we are building, we're actually building along rail lines. We are investing in light rail, and also we have been investing in more heavy rails. And then we are investing in energy system change. Helsinki is still at the moment using coal to heat itself, and we will get rid of coal. We have 2 power plants that use the coal for heating, and first one we will get rid of by 2024, and the second one by 2029. And also there we will have new interesting areas in former power plant areas, how to further develop the city. I wish you fruitful discussions, and I truly hope that Helsinki's experiences and how we have done things will be of will inspire you and be of some help.
Thank you. Jani, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you, Richard. Good morning, good afternoon from Helsinki. It's a pleasure to be talking to you again. Unfortunately, not in person this time, as was the case last year. Would have really looked forward to joining you there. However, on the upside, I have brought the real expert with me, and I'm very happy to hand over to Thomas Hakala, who's the Head of Detailed Planning for the City of Helsinki. And has been working with the development of the Kalasatama area for almost 20 years. The Kalasatama area is a fairly good analogy to some of the densification plans that Brampton is planning on. So I think it's a very good case example to go through in a bit more detail. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Thomas, who's going to be talking more specifically about Kalasatama. Thomas, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hello, Canada. I'm so it would be so nice to come there, but I'm so disappointed that we were not able to come there for this time. But let's go to this Kalasatama area. I'll try to explain you how shortly what parts of on planning and how the development is going on. Helsinki had this new port in 2008, and it left these old port areas for new purposes, and Kalastama is one of the areas. Next slide, please. It's approximately about 450 acres. There will be about 3 miles new shoreline for public purposes, and the travel time to the city center, well, it's quite close to the city center, about 3 kilometers, 1.2 miles, let's say like that, and the construction period will be about 25 years. There will be about 25,000 new residents in the area in the end, and about 10,000 jobs. Next, please. I divide this. I divide urban design in Kalastama in these 5 different kind of elements, and the basic urban elements are those which will be following the whole area, which will be following the whole process through and like the public shoreline type of things. New structure is what we as architect we always discuss about this new structure, so houses and streets and so on. Living city is when the construction period is about 25 years. Some people are living there in the area for 25 years before it's ready, so it has to kind of reflect also to that. How are you able to live there in the area? New solutions for housing and living. Well, they are like these smart city solutions we have in Kalastama. We are the smart city district in Helsinki, and we try to develop and give place for these new solutions. Yeah, and new energy solutions means that Kalastama area has been producing energy, heat, electricity, and gas for 150 years, and it's very well connected to other parts of the city even nowadays, and but we are, like the deputy mayor said, we are leaving the coal period behind, and there will be new solutions to produce energy, and this area, even it doesn't look like it, will be part of the new energy solution in Helsinki. Next, please. Here you can see the area. It's divided, the basic elements. Well, the one was the public shoreline, then how to connect it to this existing city parts. Then one basic element is that it's divided to 11 different parts. And they're approximately 150,000 square meters, which about I guess it's about 1.5 million square feet, approximately those areas, and they are, each of the area are designed a bit designed separately, and they have a bit own ideas and own goals, and that gives us, it's important that when the construction period is very long, that you get actually something done, and some parts are ready at some time. So when you divide the area to these different parts, then you give the freedom to make the design in the end. When you have the last part kind of under planning process, you have the possibility to take new ideas and new things what's going on at that time to be a part of the design. Next, please. With this is the first area of those 11 parts called Sörnäistenniemi, and there is about 150,000 square meters, and this, you can see the public shoreline. You can openly walk through the shoreline. The street views are connecting the area to the sea and to the old structure, and kind of well, that's the basic urban elements. Next, please. New structure, how the houses, streets, courtyards, parks, bridges, how they are actually designed and placed there. Next, please. This is a picture from summer 2019, when city owns the land, in this case in Helsinki, in these areas. The result is quite a lot, quite exact what we actually planned in earlier. Next, please. The living city thing is well, it's we have this goal in the beginning when it was old harbor area, that we try to get people, everybody in Helsinki, to visit the area at least once before it's built in the beginning. And so there is all kinds of activities like this cafe in the picture. We try to adapt people to visit the area and to try to kind of to get the mental idea that the area is existing, because it was earlier it was fenced. Next, please. The culture is one of the things. It's quite important. You have to create image for the area, how the people are, what they actually are thinking from it, of it. And cultural activities are a good way to get the positive impact from the people who are visiting the area. Next, please. Public transportation is it's an ongoing discussion in Kalastama. Luckily we are a bit ahead in as we usually in Helsinki what we do. Sorry, and this is a picture of the bridge, which it's built. It will be built for the tram line going east from Kalastama. Next, please. Here you can see the metro line. It will be two tram lines. The other one is blue there in the south, and then the green line. This doesn't show very well, but it goes from south to north. And so the whole area is connected to this tram lines or metros. Next, please. If you how to get people to live in the area? Well, it's important to have the schools and kindergartens there. daycare centers, so in the beginning we had this architectural competition to have the first school in the area, and it has been running for 5 years now. Next, please. Of the smart city idea, you have 26-hour city. Well, we have the slogan. It has been for 5 years now. We have this 1 more hour a day. Maybe it's same thing, but it's kind of good slogan in that sense, both ways. The idea is that you don't have to travel so much. You don't have to take time to go to work. You don't have to take time to everything is quite close to you. So when I live also in the area myself, and when my office is 10 minutes away by walking, it gives me quite a lot of time. If you consider traveling to the work 4 hours. Next, please. The energy solution, we have this huge, the biggest power plant of Helsinki in the area. It's quite cold in Helsinki during the winter time, so the heating period is about 10 months in a year, and so it's kind of important. It plays quite important role in the city. We end burning the coal at 2024, and there will be new solutions for after that. Next, please. And hopefully we get this to use the old power plant in a new way, so there will be offices, housing, hotels, and so on in the future. Next, please. And this is the southern tip of the Kalastama area. In your future, you actually create the area for people to live there and people to spend time. So it gives you have to create places, so kind of outside places, so that people would stop there and spend time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to come back on video, but it's Richard here. I think we have time for I'm going to ask if Ken or Yvonne might have a question for you. I'm going to ask one, and then maybe there'd be one more question from Ken or Yvonne. But my question is orchestration. There's so inspiring. I can see why you've been invited to create that inspiration for the vision that is taking place in Brampton. But there's so much complexity. How did the city manage all of that? And I'll maybe just leave it at that and try to keep it high level. Thomas, I don't know if that's a question that you'd feel more comfortable.
Sorry, I didn't get the end. Sorry.
Okay, my apologies. Just in terms of the city and managing the vast complexity of such a vision with so many stakeholders, not unlike what Brampton's facing right now. Maybe speak to us a little bit about how you orchestrated all these players to get moving toward this vision.
Well, well, it's not very simple question in that sense, but
sorry.
well, the land ownership helps a bit in Helsinki, but it's not, of course, it's not. It's of course also possible to handle with private landowners if you you just need a bit more time, and then it's kind of the period of planning period is quite long. So when I came to work for the city at 2002, we started slowly design the area, and so it has been already kind of under planning for 18 years, and now there is 4,000 people living there, 5,000 people, and it's nothing comes very quickly. That's kind of maybe the sad part, and so it needs a lot of discussions and meetings and so on. But there is one thing is that there is needs for the people who want to live there, and there we have to reflect that somehow. It's I think this, for example, the public services, they come easily because the people actually want to have them. The public transportation is the crucial thing. How to get it at the in advance, kind of thing, before the actual people are living there. And luckily, we are just lucky. We had the metro line there, so we just had to build the station. And but these tram lines, they take time, and I'm a bit frustrated with that. But maybe I didn't answer.
No, that's great.
Asked.
Great, mate. No, that's I think actually an excellent answer, Ken. And I think Brampton's got a lot of that luck, by the way, which is a good thing. Go ahead, Ken.
Richard, I want to ask Yanni and Thomas to talk about one particular aspect of Kalasatama that I think we could really learn from. And when my wife and I visited Kalasatama a couple of years ago, this really impressed us. And that goes back to Andre Brumfield's question earlier on about affordability and inclusion. Can you talk about the way you combine people of different incomes, different housing types in the individual blocks in your new neighborhoods around shared courtyards? It's a very unique way of building in that complete community in terms of incomes, ages, different types of housing, right into the fabric of the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's it's we have this program in Helsinki that it's that each of these areas there has to be a certain amount of social housing, certain amount of privately owned housing, and so on. And it's nowadays 25% of the apartments, they have to be social housing. 45% are privately owned housing, and rest is something between those. There's several types. And in Helsinki, we have followed that program since 1960s, and it has created quite good and balanced areas. So we don't have any problematic suburbs like our neighboring countries like Stockholm or Copenhagen has, and even we go to this. Of course, we have this some areas. There is people don't have so much incomes in some areas, but still we have managed to create this balanced structure in the city. And it also needs that we don't have areas that are only for the high income people. So we don't have any fenced suburbs or anything like that. So it's quite, I don't know, it's maybe it's a bit socialistic idea or something like that, but it's each of the area in Helsinki, you can go to any of the areas at any time of the day or night, and you don't have to feel kind of an outsider.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate that. And I was all too short. We could probably ask a lot more questions. I know we could, but we wanted to put a lot into this morning's program. So we'll have to say thank you both, Thomas and Yanni, for that inspiration. That's a great way to get us into this next final breakout session, which I'm going to compress a little bit in time, give us a half hour, tight half hour, and to ask, actually, I might even go a tight 25 minutes to 5 to 12 and put us right back on schedule with maybe a little 5-minute break. So here's what's going to happen next. The same as we just did before. People will be broken up into their rooms where we're asking you to pivot the conversation, and if some of this has already come forward, maybe to reinforce it, but to look at some of the solutions. How we can deliver better and more effectively is one question. How we can deliver, how can different actors contribute? So thinking about ways to bring the multitude of stakeholders that need to be accommodated in a very progressive urban fabric. How do we do that? So what are some of the solutions that we might be looking at, or great ideas even? They don't necessarily have to solve a problem. They might just be a great idea. Perhaps some of the things you've just seen in our Helsinki example would be a great thing to bring into this conversation. We'll regroup then at noon, so maybe a 5-minute break. And at that point, we're going to very quickly pull together some of the top points that have come out of these breakout sessions and share them with each other. See how many things are in common, see how much we have of unique ideas as well. So there we go. I'm going to suggest that we move into the breakout sessions one more time.
Hi everyone. If you're having issues with joining your room, there should be a prompt on your computer asking you to go into the specific room, or you can press the breakout room button at the bottom of your screen.
Hello.
Hi there.
You know what? I had switched to my iPhone because I was having a bit of the Wi-Fi issues on my computer, and I don't see it. I saw it. I was able to get in from the computer. Do I have to go back into the computer?
I can move you into that room.
It's one.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I'm having the same issues. I just switched from.
I see it now.
Yep. So give me a second. I will move you guys into your room. If you can just type into the chat box to let me know which room you are in, and I'll move you directly. Thank you, everyone.
I'm having the same issue.
Yes. which room are you in? Do you know?
No, group 7.
Group 7? Okay. I've moved you to group 7, so you should be able to go in.
So this is Harinder Mali. I'm also in group 7.
Okay. So you're both in moved already. If anyone else is still having issues, let me know.
It's Heather Tremaine here, and I'm not sure what group I'm in.
Give me a second, I'll double check.
But, I'm still here in the common space, I think.
No worries.
Thanks.
Heather, do you have a number in front of your name?
Not that I can see.
Okay.
I think you're in group 3, so I'm just gonna move you there.
Okay, great, thanks.
No problem. So you should have received the prompt. Peter, if you're, I see that you're in room 8, so I'm gonna move you there directly.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. The two Michelles, you're both in room 4, so I'm gonna move you there too. So for anyone who has a number in front of them, I've directly moved you all into a room. So you should receive a prompt. If you're still having issues going to room, you can just unmute yourself and let us know.
People back here in plenary, and remarkably, that's almost everybody who started with us earlier this morning. Thank you. This is the home stretch, and actually it's a lot of fun, I think. We're going to pull all the thinking that we've generated in these 2 breakout sessions together using an old tech, but using some high-tech way of getting to old tech Post-it notes. Many of you have probably used the Miro or Miro board. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but some of you may be seeing this for the first time, but we've used it ourselves at ULI to great effect in the past. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask, first of all, actually, before we do that, I would like to first ask our school trustee, who was unable to be with us at the very, very beginning. Might have been our technology fault, my apologies, but Kathy McDonald from wards 3 and 4 from the Peel District School Board wants to make a few comments before we get rolling into the very final home stretch. Trustee McDonald, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's saying that I can't start my video because the host, okay, thank you.
There you are.
Okay, thank you. So no, I'm just so excited to be a part of, be invited here. So thank you to the Urban Land Institute and to Dave and Yvonne, because, I think that I believe in this project so much because I'm very committed to the whole community hub concept. I believe strong cities need strong families and strong communities. And, a lot of people, I think, okay, so you're a school board trustee, but I think that education, a strong community relies on strong, educated youth. And I think I was very excited to hear that the hub included a school, because I think, again, it is so important to be attractive. As you heard, Thomas, I can't remember his last name, when he was talking about that town, that development in Helsinki, he said that having a school and daycare was an attractive feature. And I think that, as a trustee, I will advocate to my colleagues, try and get them excited about the project. I'm very happy that it's in my ward. And, I think that we have to look at advocating to how the funding models are changing, and I'm willing to be part of that. I think that we have to ensure that we inspire success, confidence, and hope in all students. So I think it's a win-win for all. I think this project, I describe it as in that environment.
We might have just lost a little bit of audio there. Do you want to quickly?
Future.
Are others did others hear that, or was that just my end?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
No,
maybe Trustee, if you go off the camera just for a second, because it sounds like you had a great final point there, and I don't want to miss it. So maybe if you could do that and we could hear you, we'll try to see if that comes through.
Okay.
Right, this is the very last point you made. Might not be, we might have a technology glitch there. Perhaps what we'll do is we'll ask you, Trustee McDonald, to put that last point into the chat box so that we can absorb that as we go forward. And I apologize that there was a tech issue there. We're now going to shift to the final. Go ahead, if you go very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. No, the point I was making that I see this project as utopia in Brampton. So I'm really excited about people living together and working together and learning together and in an environmentally friendly environment. So I think it's a win-win for all. And, I look forward to continuing to work with you guys, and at least from the school board aspect, we get in a school in the community. And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And it's just so great to hear yet another layer of alignment on this vision. I think it's remarkable. I know that my ULI colleagues from head office, some of whom are on this call today, are probably looking and saying, wow, that's not the usual circumstance. So thank you so much for that, Trustee McDonald. Okay, as promised, we're heading to this final stretch with the post-it notes. What we're going to do, if I could ask my colleagues to throw that up, very simple concept here. We're going to ask each of the moderators, facilitators from the 10 sessions to offer up the top points that you feel ought to come into, obviously in a post-it note size amount of text. So if we could just ask you to get the headline of the idea. We are of course capturing the much greater detail in the notes. They will be compiled for us that will be useful to the city and others going forward. But here we're just looking for the headlines. So top 2 or 3, we know when we get into the later groups, we're probably going to get some repetition. That's good. So it's not a bad thing. If there's reinforcement of ideas, that's a wonderful thing to pull up. So we'll start with the solutions, and we'll work through start with the challenges rather, and then we'll work through the solutions. So I'm going to go group 1 to 10, and then 10 back down to 1 on the solution side. Then we might do a little bit of grouping if we can. I'm going to ask Ken Greenberg especially, and Yvonne, to possibly help us capture the essence of an idea if we need a little help. We're not necessarily experts in Brampton or some of the ideas that you'll be bringing as multidisciplinary professionals. So we might just lean on our friends from Brampton and Ken to help us distill these. So starting with group 1, facilitator, 1, 2, 3 big ideas around the challenges that you surfaced in the first session.
Sure. Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you. I think one of the big issues that came out was the issue of social equity and affordability, and basically how do we incorporate that diversity and resiliency into the neighborhood. A second one, I suppose the interrelated component that is the market dynamics. in light of COVID, I guess the question is, are we seeing a shift, or is this a blip in a longer kind of 10-year marketing aspect? And return on investment is certainly an aspect that developers need to look at. So that has to be balanced with the aspect of social equity.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was just transportation. How do we deal with the transportation challenges, trying to promote active transportation? We talked about the width, for example, of Steeles Avenue, and how do we deal with this automobile-dependent transportation regime and make this shift more towards facilitating bicycle, pedestrian, and of course, transit?
Sounds like there might be just for the note takers, a second point about the width of Steeles and that intersection. I think that's what you were also saying. So there's both the issue. You might make it a second post-it note, but anyway, that's fantastic. That gets us rolling. I'm sure there's no doubt more that left on the table. Jeffrey, if you had another comment, we can capture it now, or we can move on to group 2.
We have quite a few. Maybe I guess market conditions, one of the aspects was employment. So employment lands, we recognize that there also is this shift potentially from COVID. How do we deal with the shifting employment base and recognize that a large sector of this population may need to maybe working in manufacturing or other areas? So that's a big question.
My idea was to not just be talking to ourselves, but get the whole community.
Yeah, I think so. Then Ken, I think you're on. You may need to go on mute. So I think the last point, because I think you have market dynamics already. So I think it's the employment. Let's put the shorthand employment. Just the issue, and then there's a lot to unpack there. But I think if you want to just simplify it there. So let's go to group 2. Again, I'm expecting overtime. We're going to get a lot of overlap, but that's again not a bad thing. So group 2, over to you. Challenges.
Hello, this is David Vanderberg. So some of the challenges we identified was, one, the governance of the community space and how you clarifying the roles of the different users of it, whether public sector, private sector, community groups, and how they share the space.
So governance of community space. Let's put that up on and I think, again, there's a lot more to unpack, but that's a good headline.
And the second is how to attract non-population related jobs.
I need you to translate that for me.
So beyond just like attracting good jobs, beyond just retail jobs that would naturally come there because you're having a population of, you're creating a population there that those jobs just respond to that population that's being attracted there. So other office uses, etc. Attracting good jobs in the community.
Ken, how do we want to write that down?
I get the idea. Maybe to simplify it, and I know it's maybe not doing justice to it, but jobs beyond retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or employment hub. Yeah. Okay. All right. I hope that's not too simplifying it too much, but I think that for a headline, that's pretty good. Sorry, and you probably have another one or two.
And how to connect to the larger area. So examples being connecting to the GO system, the airport, and then other areas along Steeles Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay. So transit connectivity north and south, and north and east-west. I assume south is largely coming along with the current infrastructure, but north and east-west. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next group. Thank you very much. That's amazing. Next group 3.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Daniela. So we had a really great discussion during our breakout sessions. So the first challenge we identified was the need for attitudinal change. So change in desires, expectations, especially among residents.
So let's distill that a little bit.
Sure.
What are we? Is it sort of getting community embracing the community to embrace the vision? Is that sort of the idea of the
exactly embracing the vision, welcoming higher densities in their community, and we're already beginning to see a change at political levels and with city staff. So for all to be on board with the vision.
Okay. All right. So I think embracing the community, embracing the vision for the Post-it note is a shorthand for that idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ken, feel free to jump in, by the way, as we distill this. Sure. Next point.
Okay. The second issue was the need for updated technical standards. So when we think about engineering standards, design standards, for those standards to be updated to align with the vision.
Okay, so updated design and technical standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the third.
Does that make sense? Okay.
And the third challenge we identified was around phasing. So that the fact that there are existing tenants on site, and how do you phase residential and retail uses, recognizing that there are existing tenants.
Yeah. Okay, so phasing, P-H-A-S-I-N-G, not facing?
Yes. Yes.
Phasing, you know,
of development.
New, new and existing land uses, I think is, okay.
Richard, if I can just add something.
Yeah.
There's a particular issue with the mall, Shoppers World, where there are tenant leases, including parking attached, which make it hard to get access to the land. So that's a problem that I know that RioCan is struggling with.
Okay, retail leases, you could put there, retail leases. I think phasing new and existing, if you could just say land uses, that includes tenants and owners. Yeah. Okay. Did you want to put another one forward right now, or move on to group 4?
I think we can move on.
Thank you for that, Danielle. Group 4.
Hi, I'm Dan Watchorn, facilitator from Group 4. So top 3 challenges. So first one is having an economic environment that's supportive of TOC development, and especially in the 905.
So how do we capture that idea? Again, Ken, I'm looking at you for some thoughts.
Well, we could say the marketability of the idea in the 905.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I would also encapsulate letting businesses know that their location close to transit is beneficial to them. They're looking for staff, they're looking for employment where they don't need a car to get to work and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so selling TOD to retailers.
Yeah, and transit being an amenity for them.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So another would be providing flexibility to for development to occur naturally over the long term, even within an existing regime.
Okay, that's a good one.
And then third, kind of on the flip side, is having an assurance for the levels of development for municipalities to provide infrastructure.
Just 1 second. I'm just going to make sure that the bullet point that was being kept. Providing flexibility for development in the long term is one bullet point just ahead of the last point that you made.
Yeah.
Just helping our note takers. Providing flexibility for development in the long term. I think that's that. Then you can cut the rest of the verbiage out. And I apologize to have you repeat the last point you just made, but maybe if you could.
Yeah, so having assurance of the level of development so effective infrastructure can be provided.
Help me out, Ken. Having assurance. So it's the certainty of these public infrastructure investments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. I think the developers need certainty on the public side that the infrastructure will be provided, and the public side wants to know that as they provide that infrastructure, the development is going to materialize. So that really comes to something that Maddie was talking about, which is this whole idea of expectations around investment on the public and private side.
So let's capture that as 2 separate sticky notes. So if you want to just Alex, I guess you've got the pen there. So it's private landowners having assurance of public infrastructure investments. And the flip side, Jen's got the pen, is the public sector. You can put in city, province. Having confidence in the private land development. That's a bit not the most poetic, but I think the idea is there. So it's the flip side of those two ideas. Okay, now I've lost track. What are we on to, group 5 or 4? I apologize.
So Richard, can I just add to that? I think a combination of those two is really about aligning the timing of public and private investment.
Okay, so it's maybe let's make that aligning or sequencing public and private investments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's go now to the next group. And I apologize, I've lost track of the numbers. Is there 4 or 5?
5.
5. Okay.
Okay.
Group 5, you're up. Yes,
okay.
We can.
So we had a wonderful group, great looking group. We had very, very little dead space. So everybody talked. It was great. If I missed some, but let me give you the top 3 the way I saw it. Having amenities ready to go, adding value in the short term.
Having amenities, public amenities ready to go. And what was the last point of that?
And adding value in the short term, as opposed to building housing and then everything else kind of comes, years or decades later.
Got it.
Having these amenities ready to go at the beginning.
Yeah.
Number 2 challenge was kind of a simple one, really. It was a coordination of construction and traffic and the length of time. So we talked about the fact that, there were different areas or different projects that people had involved in that took 10, 15 years to develop. So, instead of shutting streets down for that long, it was like, here's your 2 or 3 year window, get your stuff built, get your foundations in, and then we need to open back up because, the whole concept of Uptown.
Great point.
Getting it on the move.
No, you're right. I think we've crushed a number of areas that we're intending to help just by the way the infrastructure is being developed. So that sensitivity is a good point.
Okay, and lastly, we talked a bit about legacy standards to minimize the disconnect between agencies. So, better communication, a better flow between, transit, private development, city works, all that kind of stuff. So really, we're talking about having a template upfront that minimizes any disconnect or delays.
So this is alignment of technical standards. Alignment of technical standards, similar to
alignment of technical standards. Is that capturing, Sean? Obviously very.
Yeah, I believe that that would encapsulate what we talked about. Thanks. That's a good summary.
Okay, so maybe you can just leave the bullet point or leave the posted as alignment of technical standards. I think that will be sufficient. Okay, thank you. Group 6.
Good afternoon, Steve Woodard. A lot of great ideas already up on the board.
That's okay.
One that we heard from the development was in regard to the current zoning bylaw and some of the restrictions that places on, and it needs to be revisited, I think, to realize that we're talking about with the density and types of uses that we're speaking to. We talked about the east-west connection, steels. I think we talked about that. We really need to revisit.
Okay, let's make that a separate point. Yeah. So east-west, I want to go to the earlier point you're making, come back to that. But the east-west connection, I think, was a key point, challenge. But the one you were talking about the zoning piece, could you just, I'm not sure, is that sufficient? Current zoning bylaws need to be revisited, or is that as a challenge, or?
As a challenge, we heard, we heard comments about limitations on height, the percentage of the floor plate that can be dedicated to retail, parking.
Okay.
Those are kind of things that need to be revisited under this project.
I'm not sure. It's getting very small. I can't read how we've written it. Current zoning bylaws need to be revisited. Limitations on height. Okay, I think that we've captured that idea. East-West connection we've captured. And do you want to throw a third one at us?
I didn't have a third one, Richard.
Okay.
But,
it's all right. All right. That's good.
Yeah.
And by the way, people do not worry about repeating something that's already. We didn't need unique ones, because I want to see where there's maybe some really interesting overlap. Okay, yeah. So group 7.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Steve. We may be able to add the lack of local business flavors if this has not been captured already.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sort of fine-grained retail strategy was something we did discuss. How are we, with the changing climate of retail, how are we going to ensure those small mom and pop retail
good point.
businesses are going to be successful? I mean, that's a huge challenge.
Versus the big chains and so forth. Yeah. That's great.
Getting them there at the right time. You don't want them there too early. You don't want them there too late.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good one. Thanks for adding that one in. Next is group 7.
Hi, this is Sarah Powell representing Group 7. We had a lot of great discussion in our breakout sessions and some similar themes as before, or that have been mentioned so far. The first theme or challenge that we noticed was really rethinking our mobility systems and to invest in transit from the beginning. Our second—
So early invest in transit upfront.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our second sort of overall theme is sort of balancing our choices and trade-offs.
Balancing choices and trade-offs. Do you want to maybe make that a little more crystal clear?
Yeah. Timing of investments, what sort of takes priority. We've got different competing interests involved into this development. How do we balance all of the different thoughts, comments from different stakeholders? What are the trade-offs? What are the choices that we're doing?
So are you thinking in this context of the public investments, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Okay, so balancing, how do you want to capture that, Ken or Yvonne? I think it's a big point.
Here's a suggestion, looking at investments holistically.
Well, I know that the person who provided the comment brought up alignment between governments.
I want to, that sounds like a second point. That sounds like so that, yes, captures alignment between governments. I think that's key. There's every government, hopefully including the federal, are going to play a role here. So alignment between government, I think that's a really good one. But I'm not sure, I want to go back to Ken's way of phrasing that earlier point. And we might just rewrite this post-it note. But Ken, could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, I think what's there is okay in itself. Maybe I was just spinning off that and saying sometimes we're looking at each investment in its own silo, and we're not looking at the investments together, how they're supporting each other or not. That's what I meant by holistically.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Sarah.
And the last one was just really balancing our development, so making sure to include diversity and inclusion and diversity in our development. So that's sort of itself. I think
okay, so how about putting in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, goals, outcomes, expectations. Is that fair?
Yes, that's good.
Using the word outcomes. Okay. I think you can just put ED&I outcomes. I know that's probably a little bit shorthand, but I think the point is that this is not a success if we're not achieving diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. Group 8.
Hi there, it's Madhu Debnath representing Group 8. So we had an interesting discussion. The first point I would like to mention is to revisit and update the cities and the region's design and technical standards.
Review cities' design and technical standards. Okay, and I think that was made earlier. That's good.
Yes.
Coming back again.
Yeah.
Yep, good.
The next one is investment from all levels of government that has been long overdue for Brampton.
Okay, so investments from all levels of government. And I think the key word there is all.
Yeah. And adding to that also is the funding model from school board have to be revisited.
No small point there, but that's sort of more of a provincial wide one, but funding model for school board needs to be revisited. Okay,
yeah.
We've captured it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, another
point.
point.
Go ahead, you have another one?
Yeah, we have another two of them. So another one is better programming for year-round activity for the public spaces and a critical mass to support them.
Yeah. Okay, so better year-round programming, public, and then the next one is critical mass, meaning you're talking about getting the level of job and population density to support the dynamic activation of public spaces.
Right. And we had another point, I think it was mentioned before. It is better connecting Brampton to the rest of the world.
Perfect. Okay. Super. So Group 9, let's move on, and then we're going to keep this rolling here. Group 9.
Hello, it's Bindu Shah for Group 9. We had a very thoughtful discussion. Some of the points are covered, but I'll just go over the ones that are not, I think. And I'm sorry if they are already covered, but the first one was that what is the city's role very early in the process, outside of the normal municipal planning approval stream? What can the city do to help out? How can the city set up a collaborative atmosphere, helping things like pro forma analysis, and developing a robust understanding of what the public realm strategy and the retail strategy is going to be at a very early stage. So that
okay, so let me just make sure we're capturing these right.
Yeah.
It's more of a question: what is the city's role early in the process? So the challenge is to maybe in that bullet point, sorry, not bullet point, but the post-it there, Alex, you've got it. Why don't we say here, ensuring civic collaboration led by the city.
Very early on, so yeah.
Early civic collaboration by the city, which I think is happening, but I think it's good that it's getting out there.
Yeah.
And then your second point was, sorry, we've lost it, but can you repeat that?
So the second point, that was all in the first point. The second point is, again, like are we going to include just the private sector, but also having a more inclusive collaboration? So social organizations, and citizen committees and those kind of organizations very early on. So I don't know if you want to club
Okay. Yeah. So ensure inclusive collaboration of civic, social, and private sector stakeholders. Go ahead, Yvonne.
For sure. The second one was having a very flexible and resilient approach to development principles. So in 10 years, maybe would you need so much parking? So maybe your zoning bylaw should be flexible enough to adapt to change. So thinking ahead and then having a very flexible planning process or approval.
Okay, so flexible planning. Flexible. How do you want to write that down? Anybody? Flexibility in planning policy. How about flexibility in planning policy over the long term? Yeah. Flexibility in planning policy over the long term. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was, I think I've covered most of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what are we at to? Up to, I think, Group 9, I believe?
I was Group 9, yeah.
You're group. Oh, you're group 9. So we're now group 10. Group 10, final group, and then we're going to go backwards. We're going to get you actually to talk about some of the solutions as well, and then we will round the corner here. We might not attempt to consolidate these points with everybody, just because I'm imagining we're getting probably to the end of most people's tether on a long day, a long half day. But we will bring these points together and along with the broader points and consolidate. So let's just go to your top challenges, group 10, and then some of the solutions, and then we'll work our way down and wind out.
Hi, everyone.
Go ahead, group 10.
Okay, thank you. My name is Devin from Economic Development, moderator for group 10. So we had 3 really good challenges that came up. The first one is addressing the width of the roads and the road right-of-way, right? And how do we balance the width of the roads with goods movement and walkable streets? So that's challenge number 1.
Okay, so that point, you might even, addressing with the roads, balancing interest, balancing interest. Yeah, okay. Okay, great, good, really good point.
Challenge number 2 was, we touched on it already, but affordability of living and housing, and addressing building codes that drive prices, right? So it's not getting any cheaper to build buildings. The cost per square foot to build and to sell is increasing. In the GTA alone, it's the cost of construction is going up about 7 to 10% per year.
So the issue, the point there, beyond affordability as an outcome, the point about building code and its connection to affordability is just help us capture that point.
Richard, I think it's also about allowing for innovative construction.
Devin, would that be another way of putting your point?
Yes.
So let's wipe out whatever you've written there, or put in allowing for innovation in construction, I think was the point.
To increase affordability.
To increase affordability.
I think that may be more of the solution than the problem.
That's okay. You know what? It's all right. It's all right. You are going to blur anyway, so this is good.
Okay.
Okay.
Challenge.
You know what? Why don't we change the color of that to a white Post-it note, because that looks like that is a solution. All right. Go ahead, Devin.
All right, challenge number 3 was funding for transit. So an example would be the street dressings, right? So such as trees, street furniture. A lot of those costs have been pushed to the local municipalities, and they require more funding from higher levels of government.
Funding for transit and
streetscape.
Streetscape, thank you. That's great. Funding and then maybe the brackets is can't all be funded locally. Okay, Devin, that was 3. Did you want to move to? We'll move over to some other of the solutions.
I think if they cannot be funded locally. That's the point, right? Not can. So maybe update that.
Yes, cannot be funded locally. Mm-hmm. Where it says cannot be funded locally. Yeah, thank you. Good catch. All right, sorry, Devin. Over to some of your solutions, and then we'll work our way down to the line here.
Okay, awesome. So our solutions are tied to the challenges. So with regards to the challenge of addressing the width of the roads, some of the solutions we had are we need to rethink how we've done engineering in the past and leverage a value-based engineering approach. And included in that is introducing guidelines and tools at the city and regional level, at the staff level, for practices around road right-of-way, and more specifically, road character studies at the regional level. We believe that they may have reached their end of life and maybe need an update.
Okay, so I need to capture that in the headline here, but it's rethink engineering, road engineering, and is it sort of the rebalance civic priorities, or help me out, Ken or Yvonne? How do you think we could?
I think the characters, what Devin is referring to is the specific types of rights of way according to the region are not really suitable for what we're trying to do. Revisiting those types,
revisiting. Okay, so revisiting road right of way period. I mean, that's probably railway priority.
Or how about we say revisiting road character design for regional road?
Okay, revisiting road character design
for regional road.
For regional roads. I got it. That's good. Does that work for you, Devin? Okay.
Yes, yeah, that works well.
Do you want to throw another one at us? Try to, if you can, just think about how we condense the point.
Okay. So for challenge number 2, it was around affordability. So modular housing and prefabbed housing for mid-rise buildings. That was a possible solution.
Okay, good one.
That's one. And along the same lines, the integration of affordable housing into existing neighborhoods instead of having separate neighborhoods for different income levels.
So mixed income neighborhoods. Okay, and that should be modular housing, not module, but mixed income neighborhoods. I think as a solution. Okay, thank you. Now back. Oh, do you want to add another?
Oh yeah. We're still on a couple of solutions for challenge number 2. So, and along Ken's initial point, amending building codes to allow for more innovative building designs, such as allowing for wood versus concrete to reduce the cost of construction.
For more innovation, amending building codes for more innovation in typology. Okay, that's great. That's great.
One last solution for challenge number 3. That was around funding for transit. The solution there would be area-specific development charges. So when the
development charges, okay.
When the developer develops in an area, they know that the development charges they're paying are being reinvested in that area specifically.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Those are great points. Now we're working our way down 9, and let's just a couple here. We're not going to answer all of them. Again, we do have the broader notes that are coming in as well. So if these are somehow oversimplified, we recognize that. Group 9. Do we have group 9 still? Why don't we move to group 8? Okay, go ahead.
So we have 2 that are not overlapping with you here. We want to ensure that there are good feedback loops for community engagement, even during construction, during the development, and after the development is completed. So the community is continuously engaged.
So good feedback loop for community engagement throughout.
Second one is having an activating strategy and like a body in place to oversee that. And good example was like Mississauga and again the village of Blue Mountain, where it's highly programmed, well managed by the city, and outdoor spaces are considered as important as indoor community areas.
Having an activated strategy. Is that the point? I'm
activation strategy, yeah.
Activation strategy.
And monitoring and monitoring by the city. So.
Okay, activation strategy and monitoring. Okay.
And then bringing in different groups like landscaping and community services early on in the process. So they help out with the programming from the beginning.
Diversity of what's the how do we capture that? This is related to programming.
How about we say early engagement with community
service groups.
With community service group.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
For activation.
Thank you.
For activation. Okay, super. Thanks, Yvonne. Very helpful. Do you want to add another one?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thanks very much. Group 8.
Yeah, hi there. The first point I would like to raise is education and changing mindset to more urban perspective.
Okay, and changing mindset to more urban perspective. Good one.
Okay, the second one is strong partnership with various stakeholders, public, private, non-profit.
Okay, strong partnership of the public, private, not-profit stakeholders.
Yeah. The third one is invest in smart energy and sustainable infrastructure development.
Smart energy and sustainable infrastructure. Okay.
Yeah. And the last one is flexible planning process, zoning standards, parkland dedication, building design, open space, parking structure. So a flexible approach.
Flexible approach. Yvonne?
Maybe it's flexible requirement to align with the urban culture.
Sorry, I think there's a bit of audio. Say that one more time, Yvonne. Flexible. Is that captured okay, or
yeah, planning.
Okay.
Why don't you say flexible approach to planning process to align with the vision?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
To align with the vision. So just add to align with the vision on that point there.
Yeah.
Whoever's writing, process to align with the vision. Yeah, there we go. All right, and you think it sounded like you had one more, or is that
no? I think that was yeah. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Group 7.
Hi. So the first solution that we looked at was needing a united front. So Brampton has a pretty diverse council, and we kind of think diversity is key to having these conversations. It'll be an opportunity to balance these choices and trade-offs that we're looking at. So sort of that united.
So needing a united front, and I think that is a united political front. United political front, and then I think you could take the other words out. Okay, that's excellent. Good, very good point. And I think we've seen some evidence of, of political alignment in Brampton under this term of council early on, which is kind of maybe an exciting point. Okay, next point.
Second one would be finding an identity for the area. It is developing over a long period of time, but you want to bring people to this area. So that could be a solution, is the importance of identity.
Yeah. How do you want to make that? Is that a placemaking point?
Yeah, creating a distinct placemaking for identity.
So I think whoever's typing, Alex. So it's, say that again, Yvonne.
Creating distinct placemaking for identity.
For neighborhood identity. Okay.
And
great.
I've just got one more, and that's really just about changing the framework or the way that we build. We had a discussion of Heritage Heights in Brampton, which is going through an extensive consultation process, and it's sort of reimagining the ways that we can think of this community development to be walkable. So sort of changing that way that we think about this process or that framework.
Okay.
And
okay, great. All right, thank you, Sarah. Group number 6, home stretch.
Group 6 here. Thanks, Richard. 3 points. The first would be to consider the development, a development permit system to address some of these zoning issues.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main features of this really is to drive that LRT through to downtown to the GO station and even further north. I think that's something.
Next point. Okay. Yeah. So extend LRT north
extension.
to GO.
Yeah. And then consideration of an economic development corporation or a municipal development corporation to help with the seeking investment and the financing might be a model that would be worth consideration to help move this project.
So if you could just, after the word municipal, after the word consider, could you put the word municipal? Consider municipal development corporation, or EDC, or economic development corporation, but okay, as a model. Okay, got it. Governance. Yeah.
Those were our 3 points. Thanks.
Super. Thank you. Nice and condensed. Group 5.
Okay, so quickly, number 1, not in actually any particular order, but targeted incentives for development.
Okay, targeted incentives for development.
Yep. Number 2, flexible processes for a post-pandemic city.
Okay, we'll have to unpack that, but that's it. Flexible process for post-pandemic city. Okay.
And number 3, engage people. What do they want? Make it a welcoming area.
Awesome.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are great ones. All right, group 4.
Hi. So one is that we need to have community and stakeholder engagement early and often.
Okay, good one.
And then another is to update policies that better respond to the comfort of people and users of the neighborhood.
Yes. That's very important.
Okay.
That's
Next
it for
one.
us. Thanks.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, now what are we at? Group, lost track. Are we now group 3?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
We have a few solutions, but I'll be quick, straight to the point. The first one is affordable housing tools and incentives.
Affordable housing tools and incentives. Okay.
To improve affordability, so such as reduced development charges, CIPs, land, dedicated land, and the city could take the leadership role there.
Okay.
Number 2, innovative energy solutions.
Okay.
So such as district energy, geothermal energy, and really embracing ideas around sustainability and climate resiliency.
Okay, I think innovative energy solutions is good for the, we get a couple other points there. Okay, good. And your next one?
Okay.
Last one?
We have a few more to go. I'll be quick.
Okay.
A hierarchy of employment uses on site.
Hierarchy of employment uses. What do you mean by that?
So looking at office uses, and then the needs co-working and shared working space, and then also looking beyond the site. We have a strong logistics sector in Brampton, and how does that play a role when we think about employment uses?
So maybe it's prioritizing office employment,
yes,
while having a space for logistics.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on, and that speaks to both formal and informal employment spaces.
Okay, is that a second? That's a next point. Is establishing formal and informal employment spaces?
Yes, it's connected, but you can.
Okay.
We can.
We'll put them together. Why don't we just put those two stickies together? But yes, that's okay. Good.
Another point. Updating the policy framework to align with the vision.
Updating the planning policy framework?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Updating the planning policy framework. Okay.
To align with the vision?
To align with vision. Yes.
Okay. Next, guiding social policies and directives.
Guiding social policies and directives. Okay, could I leave it at that? I'd let you have a very big one so I can get the last 2 in.
The other one, building on the city's past successes.
Say that one more time.
Building on the city's past successes.
Okay, building on the city's past successes.
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, last 2. Group number 2, please.
All right. So the first solution is building alignment among the wide range of partners involved in implementing the vision, such as different levels of government and Metrolinx.
Okay, building alignment across multiple public sector actors.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
The second is city should take steps to encourage private sector development, such as expediting review of development applications and providing incentives.
So how about expedite development applications?
Yeah, and provide incentives.
And provide incentives. Okay. Expedite, whoever's writing that down. Okay, next point. I'm accelerating us a little bit, sorry.
Fair enough. Commitment to provide, a municipal commitment to providing infrastructure at the right time.
At the right time. So a municipal commitment to provide infrastructure at the right time. Okay, good point.
And then last one is updating municipal standards so they support urban development.
Updating municipal standards to support urban development. Okay, Thank you. Last group 1 again.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we had a number here. I'll go through 4. One of them is delivery community involvement. So maybe this aspect of co-design and working with the immediate neighborhood. There was talk about maybe even setting up within the shopping center a meeting place that we can begin to engage the community using the stakeholders. So community involvement and co-design, I think, is one.
Okay, cool.
Another one is just leveraging the opportunity now, just in light of COVID. It seems like there's an environment where there's a lot of intergovernmental cooperation, and we should take advantage of that now, working with groups like CMHC, the various levels of government, to try and seize some of the opportunities that might be available to us. One opportunity we talked quite a bit about was the community benefits agreement, and how we can use kind of training employment opportunities to help facilitate a vision for the area.
Last point.
There's links in our notes.
Okay, thank you.
One example maybe to look at, so we talked a bit about precedents and maybe using the right number of or type of precedents. The Vaughan Metropolitan Center, just taking a look at that and seeing if there's any lessons learned we might be able to take from that.
So look at regional best practices, regional and I guess international best practices.
Yes, exactly, and also setting them to the right context and recognizing that Brampton has its unique environment. So trying to pick ones that best match with us. And the last one is we talked a lot about the transportation. So this kind of mind shift from automobile oriented parking and that, and it's a really tough nut to crack. And we recognize it requires a collaborative, integrative, and adaptive approach. So I think the idea is let's look out to 2050, trying to envision that ideal community of pedestrian orientated, and then make sure that we're adapting to that. In other words, for example, if you have a parking structure, it may adapt to a condo development. So having this kind of framework in place that we can work towards this ideal vision, recognizing it's going to be a challenge to, migrate to that, to giving the societal and market and other conditions.
Wonderful. Listen, thank you, everybody. That especially a round of applause to our facilitators and note takers. That was a lot to get out, and with just 5 minutes to go, we want to end on time. I'm going to ask that we now just quickly pivot to, unless Ken or Yvonne want to say something really quickly, I want to quickly pivot to the mayor's final remarks, and then over to Regional Councillor Paul Vicente and Bob Diarque for the last word. Should we head on in?
Yeah, let's do that.
Run video. Okay, here we go. Here's the mayor.
Hello, I'm Mayor Patrick Brown. I'd like to officially welcome everyone participating in this event to discuss yet another project happening in Brampton. Thank you to the Urban Land Institute and our terrific team at the city for hosting this forum and for the informative workshops that occurred earlier today. Well done. After extensive consultation, Brampton Council adopted our 2040 vision 2 years ago. It's a vision celebrating a rich mosaic of people coexisting and thriving in harmony. It's a future where people are connected by modern transit, arts, culture, green spaces, and a town center at its heart. And it's a welcoming community where you can live, work, and play, shop, and learn, all within a walkable neighborhood. The Shoppers World transit-oriented community checks so many of those boxes. I'm excited to see this vision and more developments like it. This innovative urban hub is a promising start, consistent with our 2040 vision. Many of the formative pieces are already in play, including the LRT coming in 2024 and other supporting public infrastructure investments underway. These help create a more connected and thriving city. Major developers have committed to the Uptown Brampton, and more are ready to invest. As a forward-thinking city, we are committed to leading the way on smart planning for vibrant, healthy, and complete communities. Events like this one foster a greater collaboration and expand on an even larger conversation over what kind of city we want for our families. Our future is today. Thank you again for joining in. It's your city. You should have a say. You should be part of this process and the fact that you're part of this, the fact that you're watching and participating, I just want to say thank you because it strengthens our city.
Terrific. We're just going to probably go just a minute or two over time, but I would now invite Regional Councillor Paul Vicente, Vice Chair of Economic Development Committee, to say a few words, and then Bob, if you could wind us out, and we'll end the day with you. Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Like, wow, like to see all those sticky notes up on the board. It's like a gold mine of information that we'll be able to lean on as we move forward. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our guest speakers and the panel experts. And a special thank you to the representatives of the City of Helsinki, our Nordic friends, and to the Urban Land Institute, and to all of our amazing organizers. This was really great. Thank you so much. You know, 5 years ago this month, I was a citizen pleading with the council of the day to say yes to an LRT project that would have positively transformed the city, the downtown, and Uptown. Now I'm a councillor and I have an opportunity to set policies that will facilitate these transformational projects that we've been talking about here today. That is exactly why this discussion is so critical. We can't wait another 5 years. We, Brampton residents, do not want to wait another 5 years to see better. We need to make this transformation happen and say yes to the future. Now, at City Hall, we are committed to delivering the best possible experience for the residents of this great city. And as a council, we are always looking for new and innovative ways to communicate with our constituents, to improve services and find efficiencies. A large part of achieving these goals is being proactive in planning for our future and the future that we will leave behind for our children. Many feel that planning directions in the past, decades ago in some cases, resulted in Brampton growing outwardly too quickly. We all know that urban sprawl costs cities. The direct cost of urban sprawl can easily be quantified in dollars and cents by looking at services like waste, roads, and utilities. But there are other costs that are more difficult to measure, like the human costs of pollution, a dependence on cars, and most importantly, the time lost in traveling. That time would be much better spent with our families and loved ones. Getting that time back is what 20-minute walkable neighborhood and a 26-hour city is all about. Now, this is not to say that urban sprawl hasn't been on people's radar. It has. Planning in Brampton also went through the phases of looking to the sky to house people in sky-high high-rises on small footprints. But in that zeal to go vertical, we all too often forget the small elements that make communities complete. That's why I'm so excited about this vision for Uptown, and I hope you are too. Now, please remember to join us next Thursday on October the 8th between 6 and 8:30 p.m. for the public session. On behalf of myself and City Council, thank you all again.
Thank you. And Bob, last word to you to take us out.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
We'll try this again. So, I'm just ecstatic by the answers we've had here. I mean, as you know, planning, design, city building all focuses on solving really big questions, and Uptown is a big question for us. We have a strong vision and apparently some exceptional contributors to help us get to those right answers. We know Uptown's going to grow. We know it can become a vibrant, walkable, mixed-use neighborhood with all the things we're looking to see in the vision. We know it can represent all the things we're looking to see, and it's a huge opportunity for us to bring those components together and realizing that 20-minute walkable neighborhood that we want to see happen. You know, one of the questions we have here is how do we get from here to there while ensuring that the needs that people have are met? How do we get there while ensuring all of the questions that were raised today, the equity, including the fine-grained local retail, attracting the diverse employment options, the investments we're going to need, and how do we keep people on track through that process and make sure that we don't lose the path as we go forward? We know that community services and infrastructure are often built into new neighborhoods well behind when we need it. And that's one of the key questions we need to tackle here is ensuring that residents have that access to services earlier. So we really hope that with everyone's contributions today And with the collaborative spirit that we put into action, we can take an innovative and effective approach to delivering those high quality services and the infrastructure we need, keeping the development going, and ensuring both the existing and new residents get what they're needing to be successful here. It's a hugely exciting time for us to be working on Uptown and the initiatives like the Urban Community Hub. And I'd just like to thank you so much for attending and bringing your expertise to today's session. I'd really encourage everyone who's here today to also attend the Transit-Oriented Communities, the Uptown here Ontario Steel's virtual town hall on October 8th from 6 to 8:30 p.m., hosted once again by ULI Toronto. So thanks again to everyone, all of our partners and contributors. Really fantastic opportunities, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, and a special thanks again to Yvonne and Ken, and who've been partners. I want to thank my staff team for an amazing job of keeping. It's very hard to do this technical stuff on Zoom. I have to say, they did an amazing job, pretty much glitch-free. So that's remarkable. So thank you to them. Thank you to the University of Toronto School of Cities, Maddie, Simiateki, and of course, our friends from Helsinki once again added some really great dimension and color to today. There's more to come. The October 8th being the next piece. You're going to hear more from us and from the city. It's a very, very exciting moment to be in. So thank you for giving us all that amount of time. Happy weekend, and we'll talk very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.